Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to be showing you today a design with our BowTrio beads. So our BowTrio beads are here. They are a 3-hole bow shape bead, and they are 18 by 4 millimeter. So they're 4 millimeters wide and 18 millimeters long. And I'm going to show you a design that was inspired by one of our customers, Yvonne, and she gave me permission to do this video for you guys using some 8 millimeters and some 4 millimeters down the sides. In her design, she used thread and needle and did a peyote stitch and a button clasp. I'm going to be just showing you using some beading wire how to do this design and some crimp beads. That way, whether or not you want to use thread and needle or beading wire, you can do either. The reason I'm using the beading wire is because of the type of clasp that I'm doing. I'm going to be using a clasp guard and push clasp. If you want to do the seed beaded loop, that's when you would use the thread and needles. Overall, the bracelet itself is pretty heavy because it is using a fair amount of the BowTrio beads. So that's why I went ahead and used the wire. If you do want to make Yvonne's design here, you will be needing the BowTrio beads. I have the antique silver on the bracelet design, and my daughter actually strung the sides of this. So she picked out what goes on the side, and you can see it's going to be a little bit of a variety what you can put on the side. She chose to use 4 millimeter crystals and then 8 seed beads. That left a little bit of the wire showing, but not a ton. I'm going to be using 3 millimeter and 4 millimeter gemstones along with 8 millimeter down the center. So it's really versatile. You can use a bunch of different things in this BowTrio bracelet design, and you can really kind of play around even with the size of the middle. If you would want to go bigger, you could go up to a 10 millimeter and it'll still fit in the middle. I'm going to be using those BowTrios now in the antique gold color, or the antique brass color rather, sorry. The antique brass color, we're looking at about 22 to 24 of them based on your wrist, and also depending on how you're doing the clasp, because the clasp itself is going to alter the actual size that you need and how many you need. So this one here is a fairly large clasp, almost giving me an extra inch, so that's affecting the number of bow beads that I need. So you need, in addition to the BowTrio, something to run down the middle. Like I said, in her design, Yvonne decided on 8 millimeter beads, so I'm going to stick with the 8 millimeter. Here are some glass pearls that go in the middle of this design, kind of fancy. I'm going to make it a little bit more fun and funky using some turquoise beads down the middle in my 8 millimeter. In addition to the 8 millimeter beads, you're looking at 4 millimeter to go on the sides of the 8 millimeter. And the 4 millimeter beads here are the Potomac crystal rounds. I'm going to be using the black labradorite as my 4 millimeter. In her design, Yvonne actually used some metal beads here along the side, and they gave a fun look because it almost made the BowTrio look like it was an entire metal piece. And she used metal rondelles in a 2 by 4 millimeter. I'm going to be using some of the funky new gemstones, and these are those almost polymer clay look. They're called rainbow malachite, and those are in a 3 millimeter bead. So we're going to play around with the design and the shape of the bracelet. Also, you could make the same design and the same idea, just kind of curving it and making some curvature, smaller at the top, bigger at the bottom, and that would be a nice color also for a necklace. In addition to our beads and our BowTrios, you're going to need a clasp. And again, I used a fun clasp guard in 3-strand push clasp here in that pearl, and had my daughter crimp onto that. I'm going to be using this gold-plated plastic or basket clasp here, and again, that is a push clasp also, and has that basket weave design, which goes with that kind of modern look that I'm going for. Also, again, 3 strands. You can do this bracelet with 1 strand clasp if you want to do it with a wire like I'll be doing, and that then you would just bring it into that 1 clasp at the end. I'm going to be stringing using some wire, and this is flexible beading cable or beading wire. Beadalon 19 strand, I'm using the gold color since I'm using a gold color. And then you'll also need 6 crimp beads for the end of your project. You may also want some crimp covers if you would like to use crimp covers as well. Depending on your method that you really like, you will need some pliers. I have a wire cutter because I'm going to be cutting the wire, and this is the Sparkle tool set from Beadalon. I have the wire cutter that I'll be using. I have the needle nose pliers, that I will be using. And then if you prefer to use a crimping pliers, you'll want to have a crimping pliers handy as well. Most of the time I'm just going to do a flat crimp with my pliers and then apply a crimp cover over top, or even just keep it open. That's up to you. To get started, I am going to cut 3 pieces of my bead-along wire, and I'm going to cut them longer than the project because I will need additional wire to bend, or additional cable in order to bend back through that crimp bead to make that crimp happen at the end. So you want about 3 pieces, about 10 inches long. That'll cover even an 8-inch bracelet. You'll have an inch on each side to bend back. So about 10 inches, 3 pieces of the cable will cut and get ready to get started. You may also want to have a bead stopper handy, and that way you can string everything and add the clasp at the end, or you can do the clasp on one side, which we'll be doing, and kind of feeding through and building it all together as one piece. So to get started first, what I've done is connected 2 strands already to the clasp with a little crimp bead, and I have another one on. I'm going to put the crimp bead on, put the wire up through the clasp, take the wire back through the crimp tube and the crimp bead. If you want, you can also use a wire guard or a wire protector. However you normally work with your beading cable is fine to do for this design. I'm going to take that down, give it a little flat smush, and then I have my 3 strands on and ready to go. So I have those 3 strands on, ready to go and to begin the design. What I'm going to do now is cut apart my strands of my gemstones, get ready with my bow trios, and I will begin the design with the start of the gemstones. So basically this design, as we get started, is just basic stringing. We're just going to string. If you want to start and you want a seed beaded clasp and you want to actually do the threaded needle, you're going to start in the middle here with 2 needles going through the middle and stringing that 8-0 with the round, or with the bow trios kind of hugging around those 8-0 seed beads. That will leave this little area open here. If you want to, you can use a seed bead, just a small 11-0 as your stop to do so. And that will go straight down the middle, then leaving this middle open so that way you can attach a button to it. Or you can attach the button right away and then bring the 2 strands down the middle. So I would suggest 2 needles if you're working with this. Because of the weight of it, you almost want to double your strand. With the beading cable, I just have these 3 pieces right away ready to start. On the sides here, I'm going to be adding my 4mm bead and then my BowTrio bead. In the middle of the BowTrio is going to be my 8-0 seed, or my 8-0 gemstone, or my size 8, excuse me, so used to saying seed beads, my 8mm gemstone. And then on the sides, I'm going to go with my 3mm. Then we'll put on another BowTrio, 4, BowTrio, 8 with a 3mm. So again, it's just going to start taking the cable, and you can, if you want to, do the whole center line first. I'm just doing this so you can see the actual pattern started. So I have my 4mm. If you can, and take your 4mm, go over both sides here, or both strands of the actual beading cable. And the beading cable, if you're not familiar with it, beading cable is actually a nylon-coated stainless steel flexible cable, and the strand refers to the amount of strands of cable wire, or wire, that are twisted together to make the cable. So it comes in 49 strand all the way down to 3 strand, which 3 strand really kinks. The higher the number, the less it's going to kink and bend, and it's going to be nice and flexible for you. So now that I have those 2 on the side, I'm going to begin with my first BowTrio. And really you're just working your way down, going through 1 hole. You can push that down next to your beads. Then you're going to pick up the middle, and we're going right into the middle. So we have no bead before the BowTrio, and we're going into the middle. And you can see I have that BowTrio set up so that the middle portion is kind of facing, opening towards the middle. And then we're going to grab our 4mm one here at the end, and that's going to go through as well. At the same time, when I'm going through, I'm going to take those doubled ends through. If you cannot take those wires back through your initial 4mm bead, you can go ahead and just cut that off. It's not going to affect the design much at all. From here now, we're going to start that design. Again, an 8 is going to go in the middle, and then we're going to put our colored little rainbow malachite clay beads there on the side. After that, then we're going to get our next BowTrio in, this time facing the opposite direction, so it looks like it's hugging that 8mm bead. So I'm just going to pick that up, go ahead on and put on my 4mm, drop that over multiple strands here. And if you want to hide the wire a little bit more in the middle, you could actually take that the 3mm bead that I'm using here, or a couple seed beads, and just put them right on the middle there. That way that'll hide a little bit of that wire. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Spinning the bead, you can see a little trick is to spin the bead, and that will help get it over that actual wire. Here I have my other one on here. I'm going to do the ends, and then I'll go into my middle. Like I said, it's just basic stringing. Even with the thread and needle, you're coming right down the middle, and then you're coming back to add the sides. To make it look a little bit fancier, Yvonne had that seed bead in, and she just did a peyote strip loop that connected to the two outside loops, and then a button on the other side that connected to the middle. There we have our 3 beads on, and I'm ready to put on my next BowTrio. This time again, that BowTrio is going to face in towards the middle. And if you want to make the BowTrio look like one consistent piece, that's where in her design, which was really pretty, Yvonne used a metal bead here instead of the 3mm bead like I'm using. And goes that cable into the middle. And you can play around with the design as far as what beads you want to use and what spacer beads, and you can use metal and gemstones and really play around with kind of what that look is going to look like. So there we have that first little peek at the fanciness of this fun, funky one that I am excited to wear. And now on the sides here, we're going to go back and basically repeat the pattern. So in the middle, we're not going to have anything right away. We're going to take the 4mm gemstones in that black labradorite. Labradorite is one of my favorite gemstones. It matches with everything. And going over both strands here at the same time if you can. And generally speaking, I like to do that going over both strands for about at least a ½ inch when I'm doing my basic stringing or using this cable. I like to double up the wire as a safety if I can. If you can't, like I said, you can just cut it off. Now that I have those 2 beads on, time to put on my next BowTrio. This BowTrio is going to switch directions and go through the middle and the sides. So it's going to sit right together in the middle. So I'm going to put it through strand 1, then we're going to go through strand 2, and then right up through strand 3. And then it's just the simple process of taking the beads and continuing with the design. So again, I'll get those 3mm on each side. I'll drop the 8mm bead in the middle, and then I'll continue building those BowTrio beads in that kind of almost DNA look to it as I proceed up the bracelet. As you finish up the design, all that's left is putting on the clasp. Again, if you have a clasp that you want to use that is one-stranded, you'll basically just create a V here and get all those strands together in order to put on the clasp. I have, just to give you an idea, 12 of those turquoise beads right down the middle, which is the same as the one that my daughter helped me string going down the middle with the pearls. You can see how different the design looks just by the beads that you pick. So this one has a much more elegant look with the pearl clasp, the pearls down the middle, and those crystals that she picked out and the 8/0s for the side. Whereas this has kind of a little bit fun and funkier look with the turquoise and then that rainbow, those rainbow clay beads. So to get to the end, once you have your desired length, all you need to do is literally repeat the start. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here, and I'm not going to pull tight. I'm going to actually start with the middle and work my way out, making sure that the clasp that you're using, you have it at the correct direction here. Again, if you are using thread and needle and you have 2 strands coming down the middle, you're going to split those 2 strands over to the side basically, and then create your loop, or come out with those 2 strands, create your button, then split them and come back down as you add your outer row. So I'm just going to go in now with my crimp tubes here and get ready to do the crimping. Again, starting with the middle and going ahead in with the middle and getting that crimp bead on. Starting with the middle clasp, making sure I'm going and adding it in the correct direction. So that way it's going to face correctly. And then just taking it back through a couple of the beads and having the thread or the wire come out. I'm doing the middle one, and I think this is smart. I'm doing the middle one because if there is any wire or cable that is still going to show, that middle one is going to affect how it sits more than anything else. So you want to do the middle one, and I'm going to go ahead then and crimp that down, cut this off, and then I'll do the two outer edges in the same fashion. After you get that last bead crimped, you're just going to cut off the extra wire, and then your bracelet is finished. The cool thing with this bracelet, again, is that it really has a different look to it, that depending on what beads you use, depending on what size you use in the middle, it really does kind of take on a whole new look. So you can do it fun and funky, that it has those cool turquoise and then that rainbow color, or you can even do it more classic and a little bit fancy with that pearl look and the crystals as well. So lots of different options when you are building this bracelet for the look. And I thank Yvonne for kind of pre-measurement and giving the design. I know I've seen a couple of you guys post different pictures using these BowTrios, and this is a nice way to know what the measurement is prior to getting started. That 8mm goes down the center, and then the 4s and 3s. And again, you can do this with thread and needle. You can do it with your beading cable like I just did, and have fun bringing it back into one with a button, or playing around with the different pretty clasps as well, with those awesome clasp garden clasps that we have tons of now. So again, if you want to make any of the designs, we're going to put some links in the bottom of the video, underneath the video, where it says the date stamp, when the video was published. There's a little show more button there, and we'll put links to the different gemstones and the BowTrio and everything in there. As well as at the back of the beginning of the video when I listed out all the different materials that were used. Like I said, again, you can really change it up and change up the design and have fun getting it started and deciding on what beads you actually want to use and kind of figuring out a measurement for yourself. Again, I thank Yvonne Nieves for the idea and for the measurement. Again, she put some metal beads in there to give it an entirely different look, so there's a heads up for you guys and an idea as well. Also, if you want to, and you want to get regular updates on new products like the BowTrio, as well as new designs like this video, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, and that'll give you those regular notifications to let you know that there is new stuff available to watch. Also, you can check us out at PotomacBeads.com. You can visit me on Facebook and check us out on Instagram and Pinterest, as well as join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. And that's a great way to show your designs, to showcase your designs, to get ideas, help, and really inspiration from a wonderful group of people that love to make jewelry and design as well. So again, thanks to Yvonne for the pre-measurement and the design idea and the shape for this bracelet. And everybody, if you get your chance to get some of these BowTrio beads, have fun creating and designing, because they really are a blast and give you tons and tons of different options. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have fun creating.